I do want to touch on the whole 2015, 2017, because those are also championships that you've won.
Yeah.
But I also want to talk about like what brought you in, because you mentioned where we've almost lost you to the sport, and I want to find out which direction you was going in. Was it to another sport or to another job? But the first question is, what brought you in?
To the sport?
Yeah, what brought you in? Was it schools? Was it just, you saw it on TV and it was like, yo, that looks kind of cool. I want to go down the track and run.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I'm quite open with it. Now, I've never really done podcasts. I've done interviews, and I think it's quite common knowledge that, from some interviews that I've done, that I grew up in rough circumstances.
Yeah.
Brief history, both of my parents have been to jail at some point when I was a young baby. My mum was in prison. For the first few months that I was born, my mum was in prison. So I think I spent a few months alone with my mum in prison. A lot of my friends and family as such had been in and out of prison, just, with the environment which we grew up in, not their wrongdoing. Sometimes it's just an environmental thing where it happens. And I'd always been fast. I was always quick. I was always racing people in the streets when I was a kid. My parents, my friends, I can always remember from my earliest memories being able to run faster than the other people around me.
Yeah.
In school, I always won sports days, but I travelled around a lot of schools when I was a kid.
Okay. How come?
Well, my family, I was homeless as a young kid. When I was 5 years old, my family fell into some financial difficulties, and my mum, God bless her, I completely love my mum, but she'd be the first to accept and admit my mum had issues with drugs and alcohol, and I completely love my mum. She's my mum, and I love her dearly, but she had her issues with drugs and alcohol, and eventually we ended up living in a homeless hostel when I was 5 years old, which meant we ended up getting moved about by like the councils to different areas, different schools. So it was hard moving schools, trying to make new friends all the time, and the areas
especially at that age as well.
Yeah, at that age it's hard, and but all that was hard, it was a bit of an adventure, as a kid. There's so many people around the world that have it much harder than we do in Great Britain. Even if we were homeless, we still had a roof over our head. We had food. Some of my friends in athletics who grew up in certain parts of Africa have way tougher ordeals than we do, so you can't complain at times. But in terms of British circumstances, it was about as tough as it gets. And so I moved around a lot of schools, but when I went to one school specifically, when I was 10 years old, it was my first day at school, school sports day. I won it. The teacher was massively involved in sports and she really encouraged me. Then I won the county championships, and she was like, wow, you're the fastest kid in the county.
Your first day at school was sports day?
Yeah, at my new school, Pentland Primary School. And anybody who's listening who's ever been to a new school, like any of you guys, it's quite nervous your first day at school, even though I was quite a confident kid. First day was sports day, and I made friends straight away because I won sports day. And they were like, wow, the new kid's really, really fast. And so I won that, and then I went on a few weeks later to win the county championships. Okay. And I had success early on. Then the Olympics was on in Sydney at the time. Maurice Green became my hero. Maurice Green and Dwayne Chambers. I was like, wow, this is crazy. And when I realised I was quick, then I was like, I want to join the athletics club. And the coaches wanted me to go down from winning the primary school county championship. So I joined the athletics club, and I think I won my first 100 or so races, and I won. So I've always been talented. My first 6 weeks in the sport, I think I was one of the fastest, or the fastest under 11, in the country over the 60 metres. So I was always naturally really, really quick. Yeah. Throughout my teenage years, I went on to win the English schools twice, 2006 and 2007, which is very, like, when was the last time you heard of a sprinter coming from Middlesbrough Teesside? Yeah. It's rare. We have coaches, but we don't have the most amazing environment that produces sprinters like London does. The talent pool here and the coaches here, the coaching facilities, Lee Valley, place like that, the environment. Everyone's switched on to sprinting in London. There's a culture.
Yeah, it seems like it's growing as well, because there's quite a lot of people coming in, from different backgrounds, just with that good coaching backgrounds compared to the North. Yeah, which is weird, because when you're in the North and you succeed, it seems like it's much of a big deal than when you come from the South. Yeah,
from London. Yeah, whereas everyone, like, it's common knowledge now. Everyone's sharing their ideas, coaches, the talent's coming through. This is a conveyor belt of talent down here in London. Up there, it's not. But another weird thing about my story, which I'll tell you on, involves another athlete. And throughout my teenage years, As I said, I won the English schools 2006 and 7 over the 100 metres. So that was my initial talent. I had success there. Went on to represent Great Britain as a junior.
Yeah.
When I was 14, I ended up being homeless again. Social services got involved with my family, tore my mum and dad apart. My dad, without my dad, I would have never been where I am today. My dad stuck by me through thick and thin, even when times were tough. He went down the wrong path a few times in his life, and he knew he got involved in things, and he always wanted to push me away and put me in the right direction, even though we had family issues with my mum's drug problems and alcohol problems. And I've got an amazing relationship with them both now. They've put their issues aside, and with me being in the position I am, I'm neutral, and I love them both. But we ended up being homeless again, growing up in all the rough council estates. I lived in a homeless hostel, and basically a homeless hostel is like a council block of flats where you've got a warden on. It's basically people who don't have a council home, or they don't have the money for a home, so you put them in these really dingy flats, usually with heroin addicts, crack addicts.
As a 14-year-old?
Yeah, refugees who came in. So sometimes it would be tough, not the nicest. There was me, my little sister Heidi, Jack and Luke, and my mum living in a 1-bedroomed, dingy apartment. One day I was walking down the flats, and I bumped into a guy who's a Sudanese refugee. And my dad said to me, "Oh, there's a guy who said he's quite quick. He said he can do 2 meters something in the high jump." I was like, "All right." Met his name. He was called Rabbi Yusuf. Lived in the same block as me. That's Rabbi Yusuf, who's one of the fastest men in Europe. So me and Rabbi Yusuf lived in the same homeless hostel together in 2003. It's crazy. We went to the Olympics together. We share with each other in the World Championships, European Championships, Olympics. We were homeless in the same area of Middlesbrough at the same time. He was a Sudanese refugee fleeing from Sudan. I was a homeless kid from the area, and we were in the same block. It's crazy. And now me and Rabbi Yusuf, and I remember training with Rabbi in 2005, and we were both poor. We both, we both didn't have the greatest start in life, but we would be there in the pouring down rain. Yeah. And I remember having a conversation with Rabbi week after week, and we'd be doing our cool downs after training. He was fast at the time. He was older than me. Yeah. So sometimes when I'd run 200s with him, I'd run like the first 150 as he was training, and just run after him. And we'd train hard. We'd be vomiting, putting the work in the track. But that's one thing we had, the character which built in people like us. We had that big character. We had that big heart, and we always knew one day things were going to change. And so we'd be training really hard together. And I remember being on the rainy nights at the track, and me and him saying, "You know what? Imagine what it would be like if we go to the Olympics. Imagine us representing Great Britain. We could go to these championships." We were kids then, and then, when we look back, it was only me and him on the track. The other kids would go, and we'd stay back, do extra work. We'd be out putting the work in when it was pouring down. This was that 15-year-old. He was 17, and we went on. He went on to become one of the fastest men in European history, World Championship finalist, World Championship relay medalist twice. I went on to become world champion, double European champion, Commonwealth and European relay medalist, and we were homeless together as kids in the same area in 2004. It's crazy. When I'm stepping in, 30 bottles of Zoom till I'm sentimental. I had to